Howdy, howdy, guys. It's Mo from Mo in the Deep End, and I have been marked safe from my mandatory peopling in the real world meetings. And I thought I would share this article with you and plead for these books to come back. I remember these with great fondness, but choose your own adventure books, along with dying multiple times of dysentery from the Oregon Trail. I believe that children today need to experience, well, the fact that you're never going to make it out alive in any of these adventure books. I don't think I ever chose the right path, but I believe that we need to bring back the choose your own adventure books. Come on now. Bring back Choose Your Own Misadventure shenanigans books. I say we get rid of Captain Underpants, bring back Make Your Own Terrible Decision books. Hell, bring them back for adults. Should you A, do laundry, or B, open this box of wine? I'm just kidding. 45 years ago, one kid's book series taught a generation how to make bad decisions. Now we just have daytime television and TikTok. Bring back the books, please, for the love of Cheetos. Imagine if you could tell Bilbo Baggins to leave the ring behind for Gollum, have Leslie not swing on the rope to Terabithia on that rainy day, or remind Jonas to pack warmer clothes at the end of The Giver. Most fiction is concrete, with the authors dictating what happened next. But that changed when two writers figured out a way for the reader to control a character because the reader was the character. I love these books. These books were great. But again, I always picked the one where I ended up like dying a terrible death because of, again, for some reason, it was always like being stranded on like a desert island with dysentery. For some reason, look, if you are a younger millennial and not a genlennial, as I am, you will never know the joys of sitting in front of a very boxy old computer and pressing one key and watching a pixelated little wagon fall into a river as your entire family, your little pixelated family of pioneers, die because you tried to ford a river with your oxen. Or opening one of these books and multiple times trying to survive getting off a desert island only to realize life is futile. But it teaches you to never give up and always try to make different choices. And you're never getting off the island. On second thought, maybe these books aren't great. They just teach nihilism. But anywho, I'm feeling nostalgic. Bring them back, dang it. We're talking about the Choose Your Own Adventure series of books, of course. The first published installment arrived in 1979 with The Cave of Time, though as we'll see, that really wasn't the first book. For decades, Choose Your Own Adventure was an atypical experiment in literary determinism that resulted in one of the most read book franchises ever created. For a generation, these interactive novels transported readers through time-space to form their own stories, putting them in the cockpit of planes, the gi of a judo master, or even the fins of a shark. By the end of the 90s, Choose Your Own Adventures closed the chapter on its story, but nearly 25 years later, the company is back in action. Heck yes! Please let it be Wine Box or Hobo. Look, I'm just saying, there's like a couple endings when you go to the adult Choose Your Own Adventure. It either ends in like good 9 to 5 or leaping from the defendant's table to tackle a judge. I mean, there are disparate outcomes. Ooh. That went dark. Here is how it all ended and began again. Interactive books weren't a completely new idea before Choose Your Own Adventure. But its predecessors weren't mainstream and popular. There was a romance novel from the 1930s where the reader decides which suitor the protagonist marries with dozens of possible endings. Several high concept stories arrived by the 50s and 60s, like Raymond Queneau's Real Story as You Like It, or Robert Coover's Explicit and Unsettling The Babysitter. Celebrated for their uniqueness, none of these caught on beyond their novelty, and they were purely adult fare. It wasn't until a lawyer teamed up with a young writer. See, we may not be able to math, but we can write sometimes. And because we have ADHD, we just can't keep a story together, so this is perfect for us. See, we're like, there's a great story and squirrel. I knew my weaponized ADHD has found its home. Edward Packard came from a family deep in the legal business, but practicing law never was something he truly cared about. While his passion was writing, Ed's children's book were never picked up by publishers. His fate changed one evening in 1969 while making up a bedtime story for his two daughters about a character named Pete. Stuck by writer's block, Packard couldn't figure out how to progress the tale and asked his kids what should happen next. When both girls answered differently, he realized Pete was never the protagonist. It was his kids living those adventures firsthand in their imagination. Immediately, Packard knew he was onto something. Ray Montgomery had just started Vermont Crossroads Press in 1970 after cutting his teeth writing role-playing scenarios for Clark Apt, a pioneer in educational games. The Yale and NYU grad had aspirations larger than his employer and ventured out to make a name for himself in publishing. When Packard walked into his office with a draft of Sugarcane Island in 1976, Montgomery saw a great potential that perfectly aligned with his interest. I Xeroxed Okay, a Xerox machine was what we used to call printers. They used to be big and huge, and Jane Fonda was nearly lost in one in 9 to 5. It's a great movie that contains Jane Fonda, but more importantly, Dolly Parton. And oddly enough, she looks older in that movie than she does in Steel Magnolias. I have yet to work out the physics on that, and Stephen Hawkins is dead, so we have no idea how it's going to work out. But I believe that's how we figured out time travel is possible. But I digress. Let's get back on the article. I Xeroxed 50 copies of Ed's manuscript and took it to a reading teacher in Stowe, Montgomery said in an interview from 1981. His kids, third grade through junior high, couldn't get enough of it. Sugarcane Island became a best-selling book of the upstart publisher, moving over 5,000 copies, but they were still an entirely unknown entity in a crowded landscape, choosing their own adventures. It was at this point where things started to get messy for Packard and Montgomery. Both writers saw a potential for larger success beyond the small Vermont publishing house, and the two pursued greener pastures. Independent from each other's ventures, Packard published 2 CYOA-style books in 1978 under Harper imprint, Lippincott, while Montgomery's agents managed to obtain a 6-book deal from Bantam in 1979, and the two writers came together to officially launch the Choose Your Own Adventure experience we know it as today. Similar to the origin story of Sugarcane Island, Packard turned to his kids for story ideas. His daughter, Andrea, told him about her summer escapades, spelunking, and her desire to wander solo and explore more. She imagined a tunnel that could transport her to another time or place, and her dad loved it. Andrea scribbled more notes and ultimately ideated the first published Choose Your Own Adventure book, The Cave of Time. Interesting. Usually you die by a snake bite, or like an angry cave person, or I don't know, do we call them a person of the Ice Age now? I have no idea. Look. While hiking through Snake Canyon, you come upon a cave you've never noticed before. You step inside and can potentially travel to medieval times, a prehistoric era, the Ming Dynasty, and other periods. Along the way, you can find your fortune through a foolish king, dine with a caveman, battle the Loch Ness Monster, try to escape the sinking Titanic, or any number of unpredictable possibilities. Some endings are bittersweet, some are hopeful, and some are just plain grim. Yeah, every single one I would land on would be grim. A fortuitous mistake resulted in Bantam overprinting this inaugural entry, and the publisher remedied its overstock by donating 100,000 books to schools, libraries throughout America. This charitable act guaranteed their target audience would have no problem discovering the book, transforming Choose Your Own Adventure novels into a household name practically overnight. 50 books later, readers returned to the cave for another adventure, making it one of the few retro Choose Your Own Adventure titles to have a sequel. For her efforts, Andrea received a credit in the book and a percentage of the royalty that still come into her mailbox decades later. There you go. Final Destination. The opening page of every Choose Your Own Adventure book warns readers that they are responsible for their own fate. There is no backtracking allowed. I did every daggone time. I have no ethics. I was a terrible child. I always felt very bad at the end. And when I was a practicing Catholic, I would confess every confession that I had cheated on my Choose Your Own Adventure book, because I am a giant goody two shoes when I was younger. Now I would just consider it reading every page of the book, but then I was very goody two shoes, and I was like, I cheated. So yes, Father, I just confessed to the entire world that I broke the oath of the Choose Your Own Adventure books. My greatest sin that I'm willing to admit on the internet. Creating a flexible narrative where the outcome changes each and every time the page is turned. More often than not, the wrong turn leads to fatal consequences. Because of course, but really, who hasn't flipped backward to reconsider a choice? Few books offer the chance to be the master of a protagonist's destiny, have wild adventures in a pocket-sized format, and combine those parts with an element of risk, uncertainty from a single decision. Some books have as many as 40 endings, and the finality could happen as early as the first 10 pages. While most readers have sought the happily ever after conclusion, others find pleasure in seeing how many ways they can fail in the grisly way possible. Look, after I realized I would make all the wrong choices, I was like, let's see how quickly I can off my character in the book, YouTube. My philosophy was that it should be like life, Packard once said, with the intent of including moral realism in the reader's experience. Smart choices were typically better than impulsive, haphazard decision, but morally virtuous ones weren't guaranteed to be the wisest, and you often paid for heroics with self-sacrifice. Cheating was discouraged, but technically, if you didn't take your finger off the page, that wasn't a decision. There was one time when being mischievous paid off, and that was a famous case in the 12th book, Inside UFO 5440. This is the only book in the series that explicitly rewards cheating. In order to find the secret alien planet, the reader must forgo the typical choose-your-own-adventure patterns and stop playing along. Only by reading the book straight through would they stumble on a page unmarked by any choices to discover this paradise. You did not make a choice or follow any directions, but now somehow you are descending from space, approaching a great glistening sphere. The lesson was ambiguous, but a valuable one. Sometimes disobeying the rules is its own reward. The end. Return to page. Choose Your Own Adventure books dominated the stores around the world during the 80s and 90s. What's up, my Genlennials? Look, let's be real. We don't claim the millennials, and we're really cool, so Gen Xers, please accept us. We are the Genlennials. With hundreds of millions of books sold in 38 languages. But as the new millennium approached, Montgomery and Packard found themselves at a crossroads with no page to turn. Video games were taking over as screen time replaced reading. Sales dwindled until the company flew the white flag in 1998, ending with book 184, Mayday, which Packard co-wrote with the person responsible for the very first title in the franchise, his daughter, Andrea. In 2003, Montgomery and his wife, Shannon Gillian, who met while working on an Atari game based on Choose Your Own Adventure novel books, bought the rights to the franchise and revived it through Choose Co. Montgomery passed away in 2014, writing Gus versus the Robot King, but Gillian has kept the brand thriving as CEO while bringing it to new places. Today, Choose Your Own Adventure sells an average of 1 million books annually, evolving to reach a more inclusive readership, touching on issues, oh, for the love of all that is Cheetos, that affect modern society. Okay, send them back. Bring back the originals. Their bestseller remains a 4-pack filled with the classics. Okay, I shall allow it, but Choose Co. transitioned into graphic novels like 8th Grade Witch, which offers longer Choose Your Own Adventure books with titles like Time Travel Inn and Murder at Old Willow Boarding School, which introduced their first non-binary character. Can we just let children be children? Can we just do that? Readers age 5 to 8 can dip their toes into the Dragon Lark series, and even younger ones can start their adventure with the adorable book, The Abominable Snowman, with lethal endings absent from the kid-friendly editions. There are also board games, a math book, and an upcoming tarot card set, and a proposed book series for nostalgic adults with more adult and mature themes, but nothing too explicit. Well, now that just, you're putting non-binary stuff in kids' books, but you're not going to get explicit with adult books? What in the actual Schnell? You are losing an entire audience. BTW, be on the lookout for Moe's Choose Your Own Adventure Smexiness novels. Oh my gosh, the absolute train wreck that would be. Imagine Gypsy Rose text messages. Actually, this is a marketable decision. Duct Tape and Holy Water will be considering a media and multimedia publishing house here soon. Stay tuned for Choose Your Own Smexy Smut editions, because this will be hilarious. I'm sorry, I have just hystericaled out myself. I am laughing on the inside. You have no idea. The entirety of the herd of squirrels in my mind are now laughing at themselves, just thinking of all the ridiculousness I would do with a Choose Your Own Adventure Gypsy Rose text message edition. It would be terrible. It would be cringe-hilarious. I digress. Let's get back on focus. Sorry. Packard wrote a trio of books in the Choose Your Own Adventure style under the name You Ventures in 2010 and continues to write fiction while maintaining his blog. Montgomery always hoped that Choose Your Own Adventure series would be a stealth reading program to excite kids to become voracious bookworms. Years later, his dream continues to be a reality and soon may rekindle the same love within adults who grew up with these books. There are surprising plans beyond traditional formats that Gillian could not divulge in 2023, but even as technology evolves, nothing beats the experience of reading a physical book and not knowing what awaits the reader when they turn it over. At a toy fair in 2023, Shannon Gillian said, quote, touching a page and moving it makes the brain think you've been somewhere on some super subtle level. And even though she said Choose Your Own Adventure is at a dawn of a relaunch, the truth is we've been on this adventure for years. So I am glad that this is coming back. I do. Look, I get it's current year, and I get it. I get current year, jizz all the jazz, Freudian slip. But could we just keep stuff out of kids' books? I mean, 80s and 90s, we had an entire 2 decades where we just had, like, go hang out with, the Knights of the Round Table, go hang out with a cave person, go hang out with, the Loch Ness Monster. I mean, you never had to worry about people's bits and pieces, but I digress. I am glad that these books are coming back. I loved these books as a kid. Um, I hope that they help kids, love to read. As a mom of little guys who, do struggle with reading and, you know, for the love of all that is holy, having something beyond Captain Underpants would be nice, and having something that I used to love as a kid would also be something great that I could kind of, you know, have something to share with them that, yes, mother was not raised, back in when dinosaurs roamed the earth, just, right before electricity started, according to them. They're always very shocked when they realize I got my first cell phone when I was in high school. They are worried. They do wonder what I did with my entire childhood without, the internet. I told them I went outside and played. They were confused. It took a lot. It took the whole whiteboard. I had to show. I'm just kidding with you guys. I hope you have a lovely day. I am glad that this series is coming back. Maybe it's a half joke, maybe not. Maybe there will be, who knows? Maybe I'll collaborate with some other authors and we'll come up with a choose your own adventure smexy time books because why not? It's 2024. We're not even through week 2 and uh, we have already gotten so many things on our bingo cards that we just never even thought to fill out. You know, the world may need it. We may all need a laugh. Have a wonderful day. Say something nice to yourself. Say something nice to others. You never know when your compliment or your kind word might be the only nice thing that someone has heard all day or in a long while. Have a great day, guys. Bye.